great friends. Hello, Michelle here from Halfway Homestead, and today we are going to harvest beets, and then we're going to take them inside, get them prepared for pickling, and then we'll get them canned. So the first thing I'm going to do is, of course, pull the beet. I'm going to take their tops off about an inch or two above the bulb. That goes in one spot. These are edible, but I'm not interested in eating these, so these will actually go to the chickens. And I have two different successions here of beets. I planted them about, well, actually what happened was I planted the whole bed. Oh, that one's teeny tiny, but that's okay, it'll be a good little bite. I planted the whole bed in beets, and then only half of the bed actually germinated. And so I went back about, I don't know, probably 2 weeks later and planted the second half of the bed. And it has worked out well, because then I can say, ooh, I succession planted, and they're not all going to be ready at the same time. All right. I'm seeing some of these are still kind of small, but that's okay. I don't mind small beets. That's two grown together. So the reason I'm leaving the tops on is they will, the tops will help retain some of that color in the beet. And also I'm leaving the taproot on for that same reason. I made that mistake last year, even though my recipe said to leave it on there. I thought, well, that's gross. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off. Oh, I should have brought scissors out with me. And that way I don't have that dirt in my cooking pot. And but they kind of faded in color, and I found that to be kind of odd that they would do that. Ooh, roly-polies. I don't mind roly-polies, but I don't want them eating my plants. And they will definitely eat your plants. There we go, another good one. Some of these aren't as big as I was expecting them to be. I probably could have waited another week or so. Ooh, look at this one. That's a good size one. But I am wanting to get at least one batch of pickled beets done, because I am out. I finished up the last jar a couple weeks ago, so I want to get these back on the pantry shelf. And I'm the only one in the house that will eat them. My son's girlfriend, Riley, she likes them. So we enjoy them together when she's here. And I always send some home with her, but I definitely want to get some more put up. Yeah, some of these definitely could go bigger, but that's okay. Here's a good one. Look at that. All right, I'm going to continue pulling this half of the beet bed, and then I will show you the next step. Whew. Hey, Chicky Chick. How about some beet greens? There you go. So I'm bringing them out here, washing them off with the hose, just because I don't want all that dirt to go down my kitchen drain, and pulling off any dead leaves like that right there, making sure there's no roly-polies still attached. And then I'm going to take these in the house and cook them up. And so basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to boil them in some water until they are fork tender. And after I get them to be fork tender, I'll let them cool, excuse me, and then we will peel them and jar them up. Now, I can already tell I do not have enough here for a full batch. According to my recipe, I need 10 cups, and I might have 7 or 8. I'd be surprised if I had 10. But there's a farm stand just down the road, and I may run down there real quick and see if they have any beets that I could add to this. I don't know. They're doing road construction this week, so I don't know if I can get there without going through the road construction, but I may give it a good try. I think it would be worth checking out. I could call them, I guess, and ask them if they've got any beets before running over there. I might do that. All right, guys, it is time to get the beets into their pickling brine. So in the pot here, I have 1 cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, 2.5 cups of white distilled vinegar, and 3 tablespoons of pickling spice. And so what I'm doing is I'm bringing that up to a boil slowly because I don't want the sugar to burn. So I am just stirring it gently, get that sugar dissolved. Once it comes up to a boil, I will then turn it down to a simmer and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Okay, so the sugar's looking really good in there. All right, I'm gonna take my spoon out, turn it up a little bit so it can come to a boil, and we are gonna come over here and peel the beets. So just grab a knife. So I've got a bowl here for my scraps and a bowl for my beets, because ultimately I need 10 cups of beets. I told you before I was going to boil these until fork tender, and I did. And then the skins, they just slip right off, or they should anyway. Takes a little coaxing sometimes. I did go over to the farm market. They did not have any beets. They had tomatoes, onion, green onions, asparagus, something else, some lettuce. They only had 3 or 4 things. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that little darling in half and throw it in my pot. Cut the top off, cut the root off, and I'm just gonna use my knife and kind of, I don't want to cut into the beet. I'm just kind of scraping some of that peeling off. This big one could have cooked a tiny bit longer, but that's okay. And it's not the end of the world if I don't get all the peeling off. The peeling is not inedible. Okay, there we go. And yes, your hands will be a beautiful pink. All right, I'm gonna cut that one into bite-sized pieces and add it to my bowl. So I'm gonna keep peeling beets until I get these finished. Wash my hands before I shut the camera off. I'm going to check on our brine. Oops, didn't get it all. And then we'll be right back. So in the amount of time it took to peel the beets, the brine is ready. And we're gonna take this over to the stove and add the beets to the brine. Now, this recipe called for 10 cups of beets. I got not quite 5. So I know that there's gonna be brine left over, and that's okay. Set this out of the way. One thing to note, peeling beets stains clothing, stains your fingernails, and I'm going to give those peelings and stems to the chickens, and it's going to change their poop to a different color. So if you give your beets to your birds, don't panic when you see red poop, because what goes in comes back out, and that's just the way it's going to be. Ooh, that's hot. Okay, let's see here. Now, those pickling spices were supposed to be in a cheesecloth. I don't have any up here. I'd have to go downstairs to get it. It's okay. I can strain it out later or just put it in the jars. I'm okay with that. So we're going to put this... Oh, we're going to bring that back up to a boil. So I'm going to turn it back up a little bit. And then we can put our beets into our jars. I've got my jars underneath this towel. They're washed and ready to go. Okay, so I'll see you back in a few minutes. I don't know what I did with my... There it is. All right, it is time to put the beets into the jars. I did remove them from the heat just to make it a little easier. All right, I'm gonna grab a ladle. And I'm not gonna worry about straining out the particles. Like I said, I'm okay with that. Don't know if you can see that or not. But I'm just gonna put these into the jars. I'm not gonna get very many jars just because I didn't have a full batch to make. All right, I'm gonna add just a little bit extra liquid to that one. Okay. I'll give you a better view once I get these jarred up. They smell amazing. Okay. I'm going to add some more liquid. It looks like I'm going to get maybe 3 jars, or maybe 2.5 maybe. I don't know. Can you see that? Let me pull you up farther. There. Now can you see better? Now, I am going to have extra brine, and so I am going to jar that up, and then the next time I make pickled beets, I won't have to make as much brine. All right. I think I've got all the beets picked up now. I'm going to go ahead. I've probably got too much liquid in that one. I will get a little bit of that out in just a second. Okay. There we go. Let me get a spoon to get some of that out. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is wipe off the rims and make sure I don't have any spices or pickle juice, no sugar, nothing on the outside or on the rims that would keep my jars from sealing. I'm going to put on a clean, new jar flat. There we go. And I'm going to put the rims on just finger tight, like that. And look how beautiful. And they're going straight into the canner. Now I've already got my canner set up over here, my water bath canner, with hot water and a splash of vinegar. The vinegar just keeps the water deposits from settling on the glass. That doesn't feel like it's on there. There we go. Now this canner will hold, I don't know, I think 9 or 10 pints. So I'm going to go ahead and put in just some jars of water because I don't want these jars kind of flopping around as I am, or as it's cooking. Now you can see the canner. Let me grab some jars. Now these jars don't have to have any lids or anything. They're just taking up space. So I'll put those in just like that. Okay, and just like that, we have pickled beets. Now, it's been an all-day adventure just because we had to go out and pick the beets, wash the beets, boil the beets, peel the beets, make the brine. But whether you're buying beets at the store or you're growing them yourself or buying them at a farm stand, homemade pickled beets are delicious and well worth the day's worth of work. Okay, there we go. I'm going to put in one more jar. Now remember, if you're using hot, our beet liquid is hot already. It was boiling. So you want to add hot jars to a hot canner. I need more water in here. Because if you put hot jars into a cold canner, you would bust your jars. Or if you put cold jars into a hot canner. They need to be similar in temperature to keep from busting your jars. Okay, let's see. This has to process 30 minutes. So I'm going to turn this on to a boil, or turn it on, get it up to a boil. Once it gets up to a boil, I will set the timer for 30 minutes. I will let the jars boil for that long, then I'll shut them off. Remove the lid and let it sit for another 10 minutes. And that extra 10 minutes helps the pressure to come down, which I know this is not a pressure canner, but it's the pressure from the boiling water. But it'll help with keep it from siphoning when you pull it out. Think about like a deep sea diver. They have to come up slowly to keep from getting that one illness. I'm not a diver, so I don't know what it's called. But your jars, you have to remove them carefully and not all at once, as soon as it's done boiling, or you get what's called siphoning, and the liquid inside of the jars comes out. It can ruin your seal, it can bust your jars, it can burn you. Makes a terrible mess. Okay. So I do have another probably 2 foot by 4 foot, maybe 3 foot by 4 foot patch of beets in the garden beds, but I'm gonna plant some more. 4 jars is not gonna be enough for Riley and I to last all season. So, all right, I'm gonna turn this on. I'll bring you back later. All right, so these pickled beets have processed for 30 minutes in a hot water bath. And then I took the lid, turned the heat off, took the lid off, and they've been sitting for 10 minutes. And it's time to take them out. And so what I like to do is I just have a small baking sheet with a dark colored towel in case there is any siphoning. I don't want to ruin one of my white towels. And let's see what they look like. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? One thing I realize now that I forgot to do, I forgot to debubble my jars. And I did not pack my beets very tight. So I can see now that there's some floating. That one doesn't look too bad as far as floating. Oh, you know what? Maybe this was the last jar I filled and I didn't have enough to completely fill it. Let's see what these others look like. Oh yeah. That's a reused jar, so it's vinegar. But got my beets in there. Oh, and this was just the extra brine. Okay. Now these other jars that oh, did you hear that? That is a beautiful sound when you are canning. That means, oh, there goes another one. Those jars are sealing. So these jars of water, I'm just going to leave in here until this completely cools. And then, in fact, I'm just going to put the lid back on it. Once this completely cools, I'll just dump it out. If I had another batch of something to can, then I could go ahead and use this water. It's already got the vinegar in it, and it's ready to go. But I don't have anything else lined up to process right now. So, thank you for hanging out with me while I pickled some beets. How cool is that? We went out and picked them, and then we pickled them from beginning to end. I love it. So, happy canning. Bye.